talking about Syria today, and we have a picture of the French medieval castle that is in Syria, the Krak de Chevaliers. I'll bring the page up as we're getting ready to talk about the show. So there's been developments here between Syria and Turkey. Lucas, I'm very curious to hear about what's happening over in this region. I believe Assad was just recently overthrown, right?
Assad was overthrown, and I love that you started with a picture in Syria to give us both like an idea of what the country looks like, but also of a French castle from the Crusades, because the issues that we see in Syria, in the Levant, in the Holy Lands, as they might have said during the Crusades, have they've been around for a long time, and um, and they're complex. But I want to let's dig into some of that complexity today. We cannot cover all of it, but I think it's best to understand what's going on in Syria with regards to the broader conflict that's been going on in Europe, Europe's gas problems, Europe's relationship with Russia, and and also the importance of the region to America, um, since Nixon's closure of the gold window, and our outsized concern about the price of oil and the distribution of oil throughout the world. And to that, I think what is most important to see when we look at Syria is a really large, well, for the area, a large area of land through which pipelines that carry oil from Qatar, from Kuwait, from the oil wells there into Europe.
And so
And
this is the pipeline that's been proposed, the one that we've got pulled up on the screen right now.
yes, and you see Syria there, highlighted or offset in brown, opposed to the beige, um, and you know, a very important location for it to be running through. So um, this also begins to paint what has been going on in Israel and Gaza. In
Well, now, so is this in some way related to what's going on with Russia? Because Europe used to get quite a bit of oil from Russia. So is this setting up some kind of an alternate way for Europe to get access to hydrocarbons?
Absolutely. And I mean, again, to go back to or to add some context in the conflict with Ukraine and in the United States and Russia. The United States has been, um, the the policy, or the foreign relations policy of the United States has been very interested in securing Europe as a market for United States uh, controlled gas, or hydrocarbons, best way to put that, and whether that be, natural gas that we extracted from the Permian Basin and the Pennsylvania oil shale, and put on, like, compressed and put on ships and sent to Europe, or um, now we begin to see a formation of a plan that also goes back to our wars in Iraq, and the wars that we began 20 years ago in 2003 in the Middle East. So because we've been desperate to keep Europe from turning to Russia and Russia's influence, if they were going to be taking taking Russia gas, and we remember the Nord Stream pipelines, the realization that it was the United States that has blown up the Nord Stream pipeline after threatening Germany not to not to accept it, not to use it. They didn't do so, so we blew it up. We had long inserted American influence in Ukraine. Some of that conversation has been about NATO, but NATO is a straw that's poking the camel's back. The real issue at stake there was also Ukrainian oil and gas, and Hunter Biden was just pardoned. His pardon goes back to 2014. In 2014, he became involved with a Ukrainian gas company, Burisma. Coulter Black is Mitt Romney's right-hand man. Coulter Black was also on Burisma's Burisma's board. So we can see windows of American influence that is not only concerned with Ukraine, but specifically concerned with Ukrainian oil and gas and selling that to Europe, securing Ukraine as American interest, as American ally, in order to continue to isolate Russia and keep foreign markets away from Russia, so they do not gain influence in Europe.
So then the pardon of Hunter Biden really extends back into these dealings as well, since this was 2016. So he's got all the way dated back to 2014 with his 10-year pardon.
Yeah, and you have to bear in mind too, in the congressional hearings that we're looking into Hunter Biden's laptop and Hunter Biden's relationship with Burisma, whenever whenever the congressional hearing requested his tax records, the CIA said, no, you can't look at those. And Mitt Romney is part of the Senate, the Senate Republicans that are, I forget what they're called, the INI. And Joe Biden was likewise the leadership that was involved in that was most involved in the United States State Department / blobs foreign influence. So we see through Hunter and Coulter and tracing back to Joe Biden and Mitt Romney the trail of American leadership and control of Ukraine and Ukrainian gas. So I think the the pardon of Hunter Biden is in some part about Hunter Biden, but it's in a larger part about protecting the communications and discussions of the United States, broader foreign policy, and the way that was pushed in Ukraine. So meanwhile, or even before 2014 in Ukraine, in the wake of 9/11, we started many wars in Iraq, and our outsized concern about the Middle East goes to the massive amount of oil that is produced there. It goes back to the early 70s, and our concern with how we were going to keep the world reliant on America and American policy after we couldn't perpetuate the lie that we were going to supply or pay out in gold the dollars that we had spread around the world. So this also, maybe fast forward. Well, I don't know. This is when we have to again look back into time when Donald Rumsfeld was the director of defense in 2003. you can see, I forget which general it was, but there's a general that actually fesses up that the United States was not just going after the terrorists who had flown planes into the World Trade Center, but was also looking to destabilize that movement more broadly, and had a list of several countries in the region that they wanted to take control of. And we overthrew Iraq, we overthrew Saddam Hussein, we overthrew Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. We also had slated on those countries to regime change Syria. Uh, um, there's a couple more in there, but Iran. It ultimately culminated with Iran, and we still have not forced a regime change in Iran. I believe it's the last one standing. But this was part of a long planned American intervention in the region to secure American interests, and also to build these pipelines and supply Europe uh, with oil and gas to keep them off of dependency of Russia.
And now Turkey's stepping in. So Turkey is kind of they're almost becoming a rogue state. Like they're now part of the EU. They don't have a lot of friends. I mean, this is becoming what the Somalia of the Western Europe. Is that kind of what's happening here? What's going on with Turkey?
Well, Turkey's in a conundrum. If we could zoom out from that map, we would see Russia just across the Baltic Sea to their north, and Turkey has to play their hand against Europe. They're a member of NATO. Um, they have to play their hand against Russia, who is a who is who they have a long history of conflict with. And then we get down to, I don't know, Israeli and Iranian politics to their south. So Turkey had, um, maybe if we fast forward to what happened really in the last couple of days in Syria, Syria seemed to be a place where Israel and the United States were engaged in a low level of warfare. The United States to the north, and I don't know if you remember Trump's statement during his first administration. He said, "I took America out of Syria," but he didn't really take America out of Syria. We left a couple of we left a small number of our military there, and we were still taking oil from northern Syria. And Israel had, in the wake of their of October 7th, and with their fight against Gaza, and then later Lebanon and Yemen, they had also begun to bomb southern Syria. And Israel, it seems that part of what occurred with the announcement of an alliance between the United States and Turkey and Israel to overthrow Syria has some things to do uh, with the with Israel's attack in Lebanon stalling out. So Scott Ritter, I know I brought up Scott Ritter before. Scott Ritter believes on some information that he was able to garner, that this operation between Turkey and the United States and Israel was planned originally to occur in March of 2025. And that is ostensibly if Kamala Harris had been elected um, as the incoming leadership of the United States. So with the election of Trump, that changed the calculation of when this operation was to occur, and then furthermore, uh, Israel Israel has done really well in air attacks in Gaza, um, and in Lebanon. Mm, it's done well from the air, but whenever it launched a ground offensive in Lebanon, they started losing some of their soldiers and were drawn um, into a I don't know. Maybe we should say mired. They were losing.
Quagmire.
Yeah. But long story short, it turned the sentiment further against Netanyahu's campaign. His campaign against many of their neighbors, their current military engagement. So as that stalled out in Lebanon, they and with uncertainty as to the direction that the Trump administration is going to go in supporting this war, and we know that Biden and Harris have funded and supported this war. We begin to understand why. And I think it has to do with greater American interest, again, with securing these pipelines. So, with the oncoming uncertainty of what's going to happen in the Trump regime, we've seen the ratcheting up of the war in Ukraine, and now we see it here too. So, um, the when Turkey entered the on the side of Israel and began attacking Syria with the United States from the north, Iran and Russia turned to shore up Assad's regime. Um, I know that Iran sent one of their generals to Syria. Assad um, was was a little bit torn as to what direction to take, and more quickly than he could make up his mind, the capital was overthrown, and Assad. There have been reports that Assad that his plane went down in Lebanon. I think that's unlikely. It's more likely that Assad is in Moscow and is hiding out in Russia. So when Turkey made these moves on Syria, and going back to American interest in the region and who we were actually fighting against, Russia was supporting the Syrian regime, just like Russia supports Iran. And um, Turkey, whenever they joined in the fight, abandoned some of the peace agreements that they had made with Russia. And it will be interesting to see how Russia responds with that. Russia's already in a fight with NATO, with the United States over the Ukraine. Turkey is an outsider in the European Union. They're not a member. They're I don't know actually what their status is with regards to the
Well,
European Union.
they wanted to join. I think they had a petition open. They were trying to join, but I think they kept getting denied.
Yeah, I would imagine that is still true. And Turkey is a large regional player. We had a guest on from Tunisia uh, who explained to us how Turkey is a how Tunisia is basically their products and their trade is largely through Turkey. I think that's true for many other smaller countries in the area. Um, but I'm interested to see what Russia. Well, where this goes from here. Um, it will be interesting to see what steps Russia takes. I listened to Vladimir Putin give remarks, a speech in the wake of the collapse of Syria, and he reiterated many things that he's already previously said, that Russia is considers launching ATACMS of American mid-range or long-range missiles into Russia from the Ukraine with the support of American soldiers and the guidance of American intelligence as crossing a line, that launching Storm Shadows, which are produced by Great Britain, um, also crosses that line. He brought up the response to those attacks, which was the Aresh, I think it's the Areshniv, whatever their supersonic Mach 10 missile that was fired into Ukraine.
Yeah, the new hypersonic missiles. These are the ones that they're saying are on the level of nuclear missiles, but without the long-standing effects. They have long range, high destructive capacity. Yeah, these are kind of the new thing, right?
Yeah, and it was essentially a proof of concept. They can be outfitted with nuclear warheads, joy, but he said that they would continue to use them with conventional warheads. He made a specific he made a he in his remarks, he said that they would target only military targets and that they would avoid civilian casualties. And I think that's an interesting difference that we are seeing in the American tactics of warfare, the Israeli tactics of warfare, and our enemies' tactics of warfare. When Iran bombed Syria, or I'm sorry, bombed Israel in response uh, to their growing aggression in the area. They didn't. They didn't. They had two casualties, and they targeted Israeli military bases, and not only that, they called 40 minutes beforehand and said, "We're going to bomb these bases, and if um, you might want to get your people out of there and try to stop us if you can." So that's part of these hypersonic delivery systems have neutralized the aerial defense that the United States and Israel were so very proud of. So that is an interesting development. I think this also we need to also look back into American tactics in the region, because we talk about the Assad regime, um, the the dissidents who have been fighting for freedom there against an authoritarian regime. These are buzzwords that we should be very careful about, and especially whenever we begin to look into the details and we see that it was Al Qaeda that was behind the World Trade Center attacks in the United States, and previous, that had long seen the United States as an enemy that they were going to use terrorism to fight. Um, Turn around into the United States response in the area. Um, we began to supply weapons and money to Al Qaeda and to the Muslim Puritans, the Salafists. I think they call it HTS now. Um, Tahir al Sham. But these are the religious extremists who began with the terrorism of the United States. We took their religious extremism and turned that against the nation states of the region. So we had both the CIA funding some of these groups beginning sometime around 2005 probably, and later the Pentagon, the Department of or the Pentagon, funding others of these groups, and we were doing so that they could fight amongst themselves and destabilize the area. Now, if you remember again in Trump's administration, Trump bombed Syria. Before he supposedly got us out of Syria, he bombed Syria. Do you remember why he bombed Syria?
Remind me.
Somebody in Mar-a-Lago showed him a picture on their cell phone of children who had been gassed by sarin gas.
Oh, this was the accusation that he was behind the chemical attack, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think that, much like weapons of mass destruction, and other lies that have been planted in order to garner support of the American people. I don't believe that the Assad connection to the use of sarin gas is held up. So, and yeah, this is
This is the part, the posting on X where they're talking about this, right?
yes, and I don't know if you recognize Seymour Hersh, but Seymour Hersh is an investigative journalist who, amongst other things, was the first one uh, to publish and reveal that the United States was behind the bombing of the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipeline. He has a litany of journalistic coups and a history of being correct. So and we also, whenever we begin to understand that the United States was funding the dissidents in Syria and trying to destabilize the Assad regime, and did not care about humanitarian values, but rather cared about destabilizing the regime so that they could put a pipeline through the area, or because they could, stop Russia. You can see it in a different light. So, we have part of this narrative about liberating the people of Syria. Well, we heard that with Gaddafi and Libya. We've heard that with Iraq and Saddam Hussein. We heard that in Afghanistan.
So if we're playing the odds here, then likely this is going to play out in a very similar fashion here.
Yes, and it seems that the that the United States has a playbook that they use the same plays over and over and over, regardless of standing back and looking at the larger picture of the catastrophic effects that cooing governments has on the regions. We don't seem to care that much. So in a I that's I guess that brings us up to where we are now in Syria. Assad has been overthrown.
Yeah,
Supposedly,
and we've got President Biden was recently speaking about Syria. I think I got that queued up too.
yeah. If you cue that up. I don't know if we want to listen to it, but
Oh, I just meant to throw it on the screen as to kind of bring us up to today. Yeah, I don't think we want to listen to that clip particularly, but we could definitely throw it on the screen so we've got it there. This is Biden speaking at the particular time.
Yes, well, you see all of the usual taglines for legitimizing American uh, coups. We're going to establish an independent, sovereign Syria. Well, that's a joke. We're going to establish a puppet government that does what we tell them to, without regard to, uh, you know, maybe we will have requirements that they send women to school, and but the real requirement is going to be that they allow a pipeline to be built through Syria, and the United States, or the United States's customers, to be the recipient of Syrian oil and gas.
So this is the pipeline that's going to have the blessing of the United States, and this one won't get blown up by our military.
Right. Well, until we lose control of Qatar, or of Saudi Arabia, or Kuwait, the other nations of the Arab League, I think that this speaks not to the power of the United States, but the desperation of the United States. And I'm not against American empire. I'm not against world trade, but the how is very important. And when the United States continually um, uses the tools of funding and stirring up dissidents in all of the nations of the world, rather than engaging with the leadership there. And we love free speech. I think the world loves free speech. We love the idea of democracy. But whenever we are engaging in covert, secret, black, um, and the reason that these operations are secret, or quote unquote covert, or are euphemisms of um, special operations, we need to take a look at the reason that they have to be secret. And if the reason that they have to be secret is because they're not aligning with our stated values, that's a dangerous path to be walking along.
And
You know,
and it doesn't necessarily have to do anything with congressional oversight, right? Because it's been pretty well established since the uh, the time of 9/11 that there is no requirement for declarations of war, that the executive and the president could just kind of move our troops around as he will, engaging in various whatever he deems to be the correct actions of the executive.
I think
Uh,
we would. I don't know how much it matters that there is congressional oversight if Congress gets to keep secrets from the American people. Part of the assumption of congressional oversight is that there's going to be a public conversation that's held about what is going on. But when we have the likes of Joe Biden as senator and Mitt Romney as senator, who are the rubber stamps for what secret bureaucracies are doing in other countries, like with Hunter Biden and Cofer Black in with Burisma and the Ukraine. I don't think congressional approval means nothing if it's not public and it's not overt. There's something else that I've neglected to mention, but has also been latent in my mind in watching all of this. Um, in the wake of the attack of the United States attack of missiles being fired by Ukraine, again with American soldiers helping, and American intelligence guiding those missiles, Russia has signed a deal and begun to build missile bases in Nicaragua. Have I don't know if that's news to either of you, but I would imagine most of America's not paying that much attention to it. Um,
Well, I mean, other than our discussion about Nicaragua not that long ago, so I mean,
Well,
a bit.
this was about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, so this is very recent then. Okay. No, I
Yeah.
definitely missed out on that one.
Well, the Russian hypersonic missiles was a uh, seemed to be to me to be a proof of concept that worked, and a proof of concept that changed the realities of military engagement around the world. Like, notice in the wake of the use of that missile, maybe it was immediately preceding that, North Korean soldiers um, joined up with the Russians to fight along their side in Ukraine. But Russia seems to be making bolder movements with regards to defending Russia and responding in kind. And when we talk about the history of Russia and American relations, the Cuban Missile Crisis was about Russia putting nuclear missiles in Cuba so that they could launch them pretty quickly into the United States. Well, Nicaragua isn't any different.
Yeah,
And
it's like the same distance. It's like might as well be right around the corner.
yeah, and with missiles that are flying at Mach 10, 10 times the speed of sound, and not only that, but that have these hyperbaric, incredibly hot payloads that can blast into concrete bunkers, et cetera, et cetera. It's not just the speed of the missiles, but the proof of concept in the warheads that were not nuclear, that were conventional, but were also incredibly destructive and could take out underground bunkers and take out concrete reinforced locations. Um, we're playing with fire here in the United States, and not only that, but um, the BRICS financial structure is also a very real thing, and the United States. The United States is not going to be able to coerce other countries of the world to participate in that system, and uh, you know, lying to countries and establishing coups um, by secret or nefarious methods is one thing. Also, sanctioning countries and turning around and telling the American people that we're going to force them to use the American dollar, that's not going to happen. And so we recently crossed a threshold in international exchange. The American dollar, it now accounts for less than half of the transactions of international transactions that are made. And in February, um, dollar dollar loyalists or American Empire loyalists who were looking at BRICS said, "Well, this will take forever." No, once the proof of concept is made, and people see that it's going to work, it's going to occur more quickly. With the balance of power shifting with regards to um, to military weapons is not. Oh, we used this new missile once, it worked, we're going to slowly trot it out. No, once an idea is proven solid, we're going to see more of it. And so the United States needs to come to terms with what we've seen with Russia's military capability, and also the displeasure of well over half the world that we have forced to use our dollar system and forced it on the rest of the world. That's not going to last much longer. Um, so I'm chagrined to see these actions in Syria. I think it is a sign of desperation and not power. It will be interesting to see how the Trump administration responds. You know, Trump talks a big game about tariffs and about making America great again, but the Trump cabinet is also very supportive of the Zionist concepts of Israel. Um, and I do think that we are leaving the concept of birthright citizenship. We want to live in a world that people can move around in the world, but I'm concerned that they are going to muddle some of those ideas, and look for uh, securing the ability of Americans to move about the world, but not everybody else. Um, so I'll leave it on that, Black Pill. I don't have much more to add. Um,
No, it's fascinating stuff, and I think focusing a bit more on what's happening in the Middle East and especially its ties to Europe is especially poignant. So I look forward to dissecting that in a bit more detail. But yeah, this was great. Good rundown on Syria, the connection with Turkey, and kind of the whole thing. I feel enlightened. So thank you.
well, and on Wednesday, just as a coda, on Wednesday we're going to have Alex from France on, and I think we're going to hear from him a picture of what's going on in Europe, what's going on in the wake of Brexit. Um, you know, we were becoming more aware of the censorship that was wrought on the American people during the Biden administration, but that censorship was built in a response to Brexit. You know, Russiagate was uh, were these apparatus in our government that were very concerned with American soft power collapsing in and the NATO and economic Euro system that we built behind it. They were very concerned about that falling apart in Europe. So when we begin to look into what's going on in France with Alex, I think we're going to tell a little bit more of that story of what's happening over there. So
Yeah,
see you on.
looking forward to that. All right, so we'll pick this thread back up on Wednesday.
All right. Till then.